December 16, 1944, 5:30 a.m., Ardennes Forest near Losheim Gap. The world is silent, too silent. Frost clings to the barrels of camouflaged artillery. Breath clouds hang like ghosts in the frigid dawn. Beneath the pine canopy, thousands of German soldiers stand shoulder to shoulder in the mist, waiting for the signal they have trained for in secret. Private Ernst Keller, 19, from Cologne, adjusts his scarf with trembling hands. His rifle is icy to the touch, the metal burning his fingers through worn gloves. Around him the forest seems frozen in time, until a single flare arcs into the sky. Then the earth erupts. An ocean of fire and thunder crashes through the stillness. Over Baum 600 German guns unleash a storm of shells, pounding American positions along an 80-mile front. The ground trembles beneath Keller's boots as trees splinter, and snow bursts into clouds of steam and dirt. To the west, American troops of the 99th and 106th Infantry Divisions stumble awake in confusion, their radio lines already shattered. Within minutes, the once silent forest becomes a living hell. Jagd Panther tank destroyers growl to life, their engines echoing between the hills. Columns of Tiger IIs and Panzer IVs crawl forward through the narrow Ardennes roads, their treads grinding frozen mud and snow. The faint smell of fuel, oil, and pine fills the air. From a ridge above, Lieutenant Otto Weiss peers through his binoculars. "Los geht's," he mutters. "Let's go." To him, this is more than an attack. It's redemption. The Reich has been pushed back on all fronts. Berlin bombed nightly, morale shattered. But Hitler has promised that this counteroffensive, Wacht and Rhein, will split the Allied lines, capture Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace. Weiss lowers the binoculars, watching as his men, young, underfed, but burning with belief, advance into the smoke. The plan depends on speed, surprise, and the dense fog that has grounded Allied air power. For now, the weather is on their side. American artillery begins to answer back, but too late. German infantry sweep through villages like Losheimer Graben and Lanzerath, taking positions before the defenders even realize the scale of the assault. Snow churns under boots and tank tracks as machine gun fire rips through the air. Private Keller dives into a ditch as a shell explodes nearby. Dirt rains down on his helmet. He can't hear anything but the ringing in his ears. When he looks up, he sees a column of German half-tracks pushing past, their drivers shouting orders drowned out by the roar of engines. Somewhere ahead, the 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler breaks through the American line. Led by seasoned veterans in black uniforms, their vehicles marked with white Balkenkreuz symbols. For a brief electric moment, the impossible seems possible again. Soldiers laugh, slap each other on the back, shouting that the Americans are running. "They're breaking! They're running for their lives!" someone yells. Keller feels it tooth that old spark, the same one his father spoke of from the early victories in France. Maybe, just maybe, this war could still be turned around. As dawn breaks over the Ardennes, smoke and mist blend into a gray shroud across the valleys. Convoys move west, headlights blacked out, engines grumbling under heavy loads. Above them, the clouds hang thick and low, concealing the sky. Lieutenant Weiss checks his map, tracing the road towards St. Vith and Bastogne, gateways to the Meuse River. "If we reach the Meuse in 3 days," he says to his radio operator, "the Allies will collapse." His voice carries conviction, but even he knows how fragile that hope is. Every tank burns fuel they can't afford to waste. Every hour lost could doom the offensive. Still, as the day ends, the German advance is unstoppable. American lines are splintering, their reserves scattered. In captured foxholes, Wehrmacht soldiers rest beside abandoned rations and American cigarettes, talking quietly of home, of Christmas, of victory. In the distance, the thunder of artillery rolls on, echoing through the frozen valleys. The Ardennes peaceful and quiet is now the stage for Hitler's final gamble. And in that frozen forest, none of them yet realize how short-lived their triumph will be. December 17th, 1944. Morning mist still clings to the valleys as the German spearhead surges westward. Smoke trails drift above shattered treetops. The air reeks of cordite and diesel. In the hamlets of the Ardennes, church bells hang silent, their towers now lookout posts for advancing troops. Lieutenant Otto Weiss rides atop a Panther tank from the 2nd Panzer Division, its 75mm gun sweeping side to side. "Faster! Keep moving!" he shouts as infantry cling to the hull in thick coats dusted with snow. The road ahead is choked with vehicles, panzers, trucks, half-tracks, all grinding forward in a desperate race against time. The fog still holds, grounding the Allied air fleets. For now, it's their shield. To the soldiers, it feels like 1940 again, the Blitzkrieg reborn. In the first 48 hours, entire American units have been swallowed by the German advance. At Schnee-Eifel, the 106th Infantry Division Jung, inexperienced and isolated, is surrounded. Thousands surrender, dazed and cold, to the advancing Wehrmacht. Keller, still with his unit from the 12th Volksgrenadier Division, watches columns of American prisoners march east under guard. "They don't even fight," the corporal beside him says, half in disbelief. "Maybe we can win this war after all." Nearby, in a captured village cafe, German officers spread maps across a bullet-pocked table. Coffee brews on a stove, once used by the locals. Weiss leans over the chart, tracing a line toward Bastogne. "If we take this crossroads, we cut off the entire Allied front," he says. His men nod, exhausted but alive with hope. They have reason to believe. Reports crackle over field radios. Pieber's SS column from the 1st SS Panzer Division has broken through at Lanzerath. Fuel depots captured, bridges seized intact, American morale collapsing. The propaganda papers will call it a miracle. Hitler's winter counterstroke. But beyond the front lines, another reality is taking shape. The roads are too narrow, the snow too deep. Fuel supplies dangerously low. Mechanics work through the night by lantern light, siphoning gasoline from wrecked vehicles to keep a handful of tanks moving. Every kilometer gained costs precious hours. Private Keller spends the night in a frozen barn, the walls rattling from distant shell fire. He writes by candlelight in a small notebook words to a family he hasn't seen in 2 years. "We are advancing quickly. The Americans flee. Perhaps by Christmas I'll be home." He tucks the note away, not realizing that mail will never reach Cologne again. Morning breaks red and cold. German armored columns thunder down the N15 towards St. Vith, pushing aside what remains of the American defense. Burned-out Shermans line the ditches, their turrets twisted open. Cattle wander through the ruins of villages. It looks like victory. On the roadside, Lieutenant Weiss halts his tank beside a wrecked U.S. supply truck. Barrels of aviation fuel lie scattered in the snow. He orders his men to fill every spare can. "Without this," he mutters, "we don't move another kilometer." Soldiers scramble to obey, tearing open drums with bayonets, pouring the precious liquid into jerry cans. The smell of gasoline mixes with the acrid scent of smoke and death. By evening, word spreads like wildfire. German forces have broken through the American line entirely. Some believe they can see the moves by dawn. Men laugh around fires built from splintered furniture. An officer reads aloud from a captured American newspaper dated December 15th. "They think we're finished," he says, smiling grimly. "Tomorrow, they'll know the truth." In their minds, this is Germany's last stand and its last chance. They fight with a ferocity born not of faith in Hitler, but of survival, of the desperate hope that maybe, somehow, the war could still be turned around. But even as the German columns push forward, every passing hour tightens a noose they can't yet see. The terrain grows harsher, the snow deeper, the resistance stronger. The supply lines stretch thin, fragile as glass. And though the fog still hides the sky, somewhere above those gray clouds, Allied pilots wait for the weather to change. As night falls over the Ardennes, the forest burns in the distance. The German radio signals hum with optimism victory will be ours. But beneath the surface, a quiet dread begins to stir, because they all know what they've been ordered not to say aloud. If they stop, even for a day, the offensive dies. December the 19th, 1944. 3 days into the offensive, the Ardennes looks less like a battlefield and more like a graveyard of frozen steel. Burned-out trucks and shattered trees line the roads. The snow, once white and clean, is streaked with oil, soot, and blood. The initial roar of victory has faded into the grinding reality of a stalled advance. Lieutenant Otto Weiss leans over the engine deck of his Panther, its motor coughing in protest. The temperature has dropped below freezing. Men cluster around the vehicle, rubbing their hands together for warmth. They've driven barely 10 kilometers since dawn, most of it spent clearing wrecks or digging out of snowdrifts. The fog that once shielded them from Allied aircraft now feels suffocating. No supply convoys can find their position. The radios crackle with half-heard reports, towns captured, then lost again. The offensive is moving, yes, but not fast enough. Down the road, Private Ernst Keller trudges through knee-deep snow with a jerry can in each hand. His gloves are stiff with ice. His unit has been ordered to recover fuel from disabled American vehicles. Around him, men strip parts from wrecked Shermans and Jeeps, tearing through the pockets of fallen soldiers for rations and cigarettes. The frostbite gnaws at their fingers, but they keep moving, because without fuel, every tank becomes a tomb. Keller finds a wrecked U.S. fuel truck, half buried in snow. He pries open the cap and peers inside, empty. Someone has beaten him to it. He curses under his breath and kicks the tire, the hollow thud echoing through the trees. In the distance, the dull rumble of artillery reminds him that time is running out. By afternoon, the roads near St. Vith are jammed with vehicles. Columns stretch for miles, Panzer IVs, half-tracks, horse-drawn wagons, all tangled in a single frozen artery. Supply trucks can't get through. Ambulances can't get back. Drivers shout and argue, their breath steaming in the cold air. Some abandon their vehicles entirely and march on foot, disappearing into the forest. At divisional headquarters, Weiss studies his map by lantern light. The red arrows drawn across Belgium now look absurdly optimistic. Bastogne still holds. The Americans refuse to collapse. Worse, the Allies are regrouping. They weren't supposed to fight like this, Weiss mutters. His adjutant shrugs. They have fuel. We don't. An orderly burst into the room with a message from higher command. Hold positions, refuel, await further orders. Lee slams his fist against the table. Await what? Snowfall? Meanwhile, morale begins to fracture. Veterans whisper that Hitler's plan was madness from the start, that the Ardennes roads, the fuel shortages, the weather, none of it made sense. But open doubt is dangerous. Officers remind the men that the Führer has promised new jet aircraft, new weapons, a turning point. They nod, but their eyes tell another story. That night, the temperature drops again. In a captured farmhouse, Keller's squad huddles around a small fire. The walls are cracked, the windows shattered. He pulls his blanket tighter, listening to the wind howl outside. Someone passes around a tin of stolen American coffee. It tastes like burnt wood, but it's warm. Think we'll reach Antwerp? One soldier asks. Another laughs bitterly. We'll be lucky to reach breakfast. The room falls quiet. They all know what he means. Weiss walks through the line before dawn, his boots crunching over frozen mud. He stops beside a disabled king tiger, its massive gun pointing uselessly into the fog. The crew stands beside it, faces gray with exhaustion. "Why aren't you moving?" he demands. "Fuel's gone, Herr Leutnant," the commander replies, tapping the empty gauge. "We've been waiting 12 hours. Weiss stares at the steel giant, still reeking of burnt oil. He feels the truth settle in his gut like lead. They have outrun their own lifeline. The offensive Hitler's grand final gamble is bleeding to death not from bullets, but from logistics. Overhead, the sky begins to lighten, the clouds thinning just enough to let in faint sunlight. It glints off the ice-covered branches, the quiet before something worse. A messenger arrives breathless from Battalion HQ. "Sir, the weather's changing. Forecast says clear skies by tomorrow." Weiss doesn't answer. He looks west, where the distant thunder of American artillery rumbles through the hills. The fog, their only protection, is lifting. And he knows what that means. December 23rd, 1944. At dawn, the first rays of sunlight pierce through the thinning mist. The forest, blanketed in white, glitters with frost, and for the first time in over a week, the sky above the Ardennes is clear. To the German soldiers below, it feels like a betrayal. Lieutenant Otto Weiss stands in the middle of a snow-covered crossroads near the town of Mannheim. His Panther tank sits silent, fuel tanks bone dry, the crew huddled around it for warmth. The radio crackles with static and fragments of desperate calls. Allied planes, hundreds of them, can't move the convoys. He looks up and sees them, dark specks against the morning sun. Then, the roar builds. Dozens of P-47 Thunderbolts sweep in low over the trees, sunlight flashing off their wings. In seconds, the silence of the forest is shattered. The first rockets streak downward, exploding among the German columns that stretch for miles along the roads. Trucks erupt into flame, half-tracks skid off the road, their crews bailing into ditches. The air fills with the deafening howl of engines, the clatter of 50 caliber guns, the screams of men diving for cover. Snow bursts upward in clouds of dirt and fire. Private Ernst Keller hits the ground beside a burned-out Jeep as a rocket slams into a fuel truck ahead. The explosion tears through the column, a wave of heat washing over him. He covers his head, his heart pounding. Above, the American planes wheel back for another pass. "Air attack! Scatter! Get off the road!" someone yells. But there's nowhere to go. The forest offers no shelter, only thin trees and frozen ground. For days, the Germans had begged for fuel. Now, their own supply trucks have become fireballs lighting the sky. Keller watches helplessly as men run from vehicle to vehicle, trying to drag out the wounded. One of them, a boy barely 17, stumbles past him with his coat on fire, his screams lost beneath the roar of engines. Lieutenant Weiss crawls into a roadside ditch and peers through the smoke. He can see the P-47s banking south, one after another, their machine guns stitching the road with fire. He curses under his breath not at the pilots, but at the sky itself. The weather that had hidden them, that had given Germany one last sliver of hope, is gone. By midday, the attacks are relentless. American and British aircraft dominate the skies. Thunderbolts, Typhoons, Mustang, Siege, Sortie, hunting for anything that moves. Bridges are destroyed, fuel depots obliterated, entire convoys shredded before they can reach the front. The frozen Ardennes echoes with the rumble of distant engines and the hollow thuds of bombs. The once proud armored spearhead, the same divisions that had broken through the American lines just days ago, is now trapped in a web of burning roads and impassable wreckage. At headquarters, the mood is grim. Weiss enters the farmhouse command post, his uniform blackened by smoke. "We can't move in daylight," he tells the operations officer. "If we do, we'll be slaughtered." The officer nods without looking up. "Then move at night," he says quietly. if there's still fuel to move with. Messages from higher command bring no comfort. The Führer insists the offensive will continue. Bastogne must fall, Antwerp must be reached. But those words mean nothing to the men freezing in the woods, hiding from the sky. That evening, Keller sits in the ruins of a barn, the walls scorched from a nearby explosion. He counts the planes still circling overhead, their engines fading into the distance. The snow glows orange from the fires still burning miles away. He remembers what his sergeant said, the first night of the attack by Christmas. We'll be in Antwerp. Now, it's Christmas Eve, and they haven't moved in 2 days. Their rations are gone, their boots are soaked. The once proud Tiger tanks are silent monuments of iron, abandoned for lack of a few gallons of fuel. Weiss walks past the wrecks, stepping over frozen bodies half buried in the snow. He stops beside a destroyed convoy of medical trucks. The Red Cross symbols mean nothing, no each one bombed to ash. He looks up again at the clear, endless blue sky. This, he whispers to himself, is the end of the dream. Somewhere in the distance, church bells ring faintly through the smoke Christmas in Belgium. But there's no joy in the sound, only irony. For the German soldiers of the Ardennes, the sky itself has turned against them. December 24th, 1944, Christmas Eve in the Ardennes. The fires have burned low, but their glow still stains the snow with a dull orange light. The forest is quiet, again eerily quiet. The thunder of artillery has rolled westward, replaced by the occasional crack of distant gunfire and the groan of engines dying in the cold. Lieutenant Otto Weiss kneels beside a broken map case in the snow. The parchment inside is soaked and torn, the neat red arrows smudged into pink streaks. Once, this map had promised victory. Now it's nothing but paper, useless as the promises that sent them here. He looks up as his radio man approaches, his face pale beneath a film of frost. Herr Leutnant, the man says softly. Reports from Bastogne. The Americans are still holding. The 101st Airborne refuses to surrender. Weiss closes his eyes. The name Bastogne has become a curse whispered across every German unit still fighting. The town, once just another crossroads on the map, has become an iron knot in the middle of the offensive, one that no amount of artillery can untie. Nearby, Private Ernst Keller crouches in a foxhole with 3 other soldiers. Their breath fogs in the air as they share a single tin of beans scraped from a wrecked truck. Each man eats slowly, savoring the warmth. None of them speaks. Somewhere beyond the tree line, they can hear the distant rumble of American armor. "Do you think we'll make it home?" one of them finally asks. Keller doesn't answer. He looks up at the stars instead. The sky is painfully clear, so bright it feels cruel. By Christmas morning, the reality can no longer be denied. The German advance has stalled completely. American reinforcements are pouring into the Ardennes from the north and south. Patton's Third Army driving hard from Luxembourg, cutting off escape routes one by one. Convoys of wounded snake eastward, their trucks overloaded, headlights dimmed. The men inside are silent, wrapped in blankets, staring at nothing. Civilians watch them pass through burned-out villages, their faces expressionless. They've seen too many armies come and go to believe in any of them. At the front, Weiss meets with his battalion commander in a ruined farmhouse outside Celles. The roof is gone, and snow drifts through the rafters. The commander, a gaunt major with hollow eyes, speaks in a low voice. "We're surrounded. The Americans have taken Celles, Rochefort, and Neufchâteau. We're out of fuel, out of ammunition, and nearly out of men." Scheiss straightens his coat, salutes, and asks the question both of them already know the answer to. "Orders, sir?" The major hesitates, then sighs. "Withdraw. Burn what you can't move. We'll try to reach the Aar River before it's too late." That night, Keller's unit begins the retreat. They march east through the woods, the snow crunching beneath their boots. The moonlight reveals the wreckage left behind, tanks frozen in place, guns pointing uselessly at the sky, and bodies half buried beneath the drifting snow. A horse lies dead beside a cart, its harness still attached. The men pass without a word. As they trudge through the darkness, a low hum rises overhead. They freeze, hearts pounding. Then, the faint silhouette of an American C-47 passes above them, its belly flashing white as it drops parachutes, supplies for the surrounded 101st Airborne at Bastogne. The irony is unbearable. While the Allies are being resupplied from the air, the Germans starve in silence below. By dawn, the retreat has turned to chaos. Roads are clogged with wrecks, villages lost and retaken in hours. Keller's squad passes an SS column that's been ambushed, vehicles still burning. Their black uniformed crews strewn across the snow. The air smells of oil and death. In the gray light of morning, Weiss finally stops beside his immobilized Panther, abandoned the night before. He runs his hand across its steel hull, now cold as a tomb. Inside, the turret crew still sits slumped where they fell killed by shrapnel as they tried to defend it. He stands there for a long time. The only sound the creak of frozen metal and the distant thud of American artillery. Then he speaks softly, almost to himself. It's over. A younger officer nearby turns. "Sir?" Weiss looks at him, eyes hollow. This offensive, this war, it's all over now. The younger man doesn't reply. He just looks eastward, toward the faint red glow of morning. Across the Ardennes, that same realization spreads like frost, from officer to private, from tank crew to foot soldier. The illusion is broken. The grand gamble has failed. And in that cold December dawn, among the wreckage and the silence, the German army finally understands. The Reich will not rise again. December 28th, 1944. The Ardennes forest is silent once more. The thunder of battle replaced by the whisper of wind through bare trees. Smoke drifts in low, lazy trails from the ruins of villages that no longer have names. The snow has fallen again, covering the blackened wrecks and frozen bodies in a white shroud as if trying to hide what happened here. Along a narrow forest road near Houffalize, a column of German soldiers trudges eastward. No formation, no discipline. Just weary shapes in tattered greatcoats, rifles slung low, boots soaked and splitting. The once proud divisions that launched the Wacht am Rhein offensive now look more like refugees than conquerors. Lieutenant Otto Weiss walks at the front, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow, his uniform is torn, his map case empty. The Panther tank he once commanded lies somewhere behind him, buried in snow and fire. Each step is agony, each breath a cloud of frost. Around him men stumble and fall, some get back up, others don't. No one stops anymore. Private Ernst Keller limps a few paces behind, his rifle strapped to his back, the barrel wrapped in rags. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. His canteen froze solid the night before. When he coughs, it comes out red. But he keeps walking because stopping means freezing where he stands. They pass through a shattered village. Nothing left but chimneys and ghosts. In the rubble, a small sign still hangs crookedly from a post. Bastogne, 12 kilo. Someone has scrawled underneath it in English, still held. The men say nothing. In the distance, artillery rumbles again, not German, but American. The sound rolls across the hills, followed by the low drone of aircraft engines. The sky is clear, painfully blue, dotted with contrails that gleam in the sun. The Luftwaffe is nowhere to be seen. By noon, the road turns to ice. Trucks spin their wheels uselessly, and horses collapse in their harnesses. The men strip them for supplies, taking the last of the oats, even cutting strips of leather from the harness to chew. Hunger does strange things. At a crossroads, Weiss halts his column. Before them, a German staff car burns quietly, the black smoke curling into the sky. Inside, The driver sits motionless, frozen to the steering wheel. A paper flutters from his hand in order, signed by the 6th Panzer Army Command. Hold your positions. Victory will come. Weiss stares at the paper, then lets it drop into the snow. Victory, he says bitterly, isn't coming for anyone. That night, the survivors make camp in the woods. The firewood is damp, and the flames barely rise above the coals. Men huddle together for warmth, wrapped in whatever they can find, blankets, curtains, even torn Allied flags scavenged from the ruins. Somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of singing drifts through the trees. American soldiers celebrating the new year. Keller listens quietly. The sound feels unreal, like something from another world. They have warmth, he murmurs, food, music. He looks down at his frozen hands and whispers, "What do we have left?" Weiss answers without looking up, "A war that's already lost." Snow begins to fall again, soft and relentless. It covers the tracks of the retreating men, the broken weapons, the scattered helmets. By morning, the forest will look untouched, peaceful again, hiding the truth beneath its silence. As dawn breaks, the survivors reach the Our River, the same line they had crossed triumphantly just 2 weeks before. Now, it marks not the start of an offensive, but the end of a dream. The bridges are clogged with vehicles and wounded men. Officers shout orders no one listens to. The sound of boots on ice echoes like ghosts. Weiss stops halfway across the bridge and looks back one last time. The Ardennes lies behind him, a frozen wasteland of ambition and death. He knows now what he couldn't admit before. The Reich's fate was sealed not in this forest, but long ago, in the factories and skies of a nation that could no longer keep up. Private Keller pauses beside him, staring westward into the pale morning light. "Will they follow us?" he asks quietly. Weiss shakes his head. "No," he says, "they don't have to. They've already won." The wind picks up, carrying with it the distant hum of American planes. Weiss pulls his collar higher, gives a final glance toward the white hills, and turns away. Behind him, the snow begins to fall harder, covering the last footprints of Germany's final gamble.